Oh, because of the enchanting sobriquet, and one of which I never tire.
Welcome to Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Eerie, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in the Book of Boba Fett, Episode 7, In the Name of Honor. This season brought all of the season's dangling plot threads together, including Black Krrsstan, Din Djarin, the Rancor, the mods, Freetown, and even Grogu's new Jedi skills had a chance to be adorable. The title of the episode, In the Name of Honor, reflects the reason why everyone is fighting. The people fighting for the Pikes were bought by the Pikes, but the people fighting for Boba Fett choose to be with him. They're fighting for their homes, like Freetown. They're fighting for loyalty, like Fennec Shand, or for honor, like Din Djarin.
It's against the creed.
All season long, we've been asking why Boba Fett wants to be a crime lord, and this episode gave our answer.
This is my city. These are my people.
Like the Tuscans.
It's not that he wants to be a crime lord. He now recognizes the value of having a tribe. So the real Book of Boba Fett was the friends we made along the way. So let's get into the Easter eggs, beginning with all the tropes the show has taken from gangster movies. Jabba the Hutt was originally intended to be a kind of grotesque version of Marlon Brando as Vito Corleone.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Or, actually more likely, Marlon Brando in Apocalypse Now.
Horror.
Bombing an establishment owned by a rival gang is an old gangster movie trope, and so is debating whether or not to sell drugs on the street.
Mos Espa can become a prosperous city under our protection. Spice is killing our people.
But drugs is a dirty business.
Because if you sell spice, the next thing you know, the death stick dealers show up and your neighborhood goes straight to poodoo.
You wanna buy some death sticks?
So, if you need to know which gangsters are good or bad, the ones who don't sell drugs are good.
Now, what are you gonna say if someone asks you to try drugs?
I don't need drugs because they can make me goofy.
The Pikes, on the other hand, have built their organization on the trade of spice, like we've seen in the Clone Wars.
Until you give me my spice.
And also Solo, where they operate the spice mines of Kessel. And I don't think I need to mention at this point that spice in Star Wars is heavily inspired by Dune, which inspired several other aspects of Star Wars, including a galactic empire and the Force-using Jedi Knights.
Come here, kneel.
Now the entire season has seemed to be mimicking the structure of The Godfather Part 2, constantly cutting to flashbacks. But as I went over in this video, I don't think the structure worked out. Check that one out if you want to know why in a lot more detail. Now, the end of this episode also mimics The Godfather Part 2. Boba receives fruit from the townspeople just like Don Ciccio.
Thank you.
And that fruit Boba receives is called a Melu Run, which we saw in Star Wars Rebels.
One fresh Melu run as ordered.
Now, when the Trandoshans turned on Krrsstan, it was very reminiscent of the death of Sonny Corleone in The Godfather. And this whole sequence of the betrayals is like the ending to all Godfather films when Michael slowly eliminates all his enemies.
Today I settle all family business.
And come to think of it, so is Fennec Shand's badass assassin spree at the end of the episode. Anthony Basil on Twitter points out a couple more Godfather references.
My offer is this. Nothing.
Following offer. Nothing.
And
It's the smart move.
It was the smart move.
the Aqualish turn on the mods. And the mods, by the way, are named and designed after the English mod culture of the 60s. Even the mirrors on their bikes are a nod to this. And the Klatooinians turning on the Gamorrean guards is super lame. They just kind of back them up. I mean, come on, the Gamorreans can fight. We saw it in episode 1. When Boba wants to retreat to his fortress, mod number 2 disagrees.
If you want to abandon Mos Espa and hide in your fortress, go ahead.
Which makes for a way more interesting episode and earns the loyalty of the people of Mos Espa. Appropriate since this bar is called the Sanctuary, and it ends up being a sanctuary for Boba Fett at the end of the series. Good observation by the channel Heavy Spoilers. And then, Cad Bane rolls into town. Now, if you have not seen the Clone Wars animated series, then you might be wondering who the heck this guy is. Basically, he's been the baddest bounty hunter in the galaxy for like 30 years at this point. His face, his duster, his hat are all designed to mimic the look of Clyde Van Cleef in Sergio Leone's spaghetti western trilogy.
I always see the job through.
Now, all through the Clone Wars, he was the #1 go-to bounty hunter for the Separatists. In particular, one of my favorite missions of his involved breaking into the Jedi Temple to steal a holocron that had the names of Force-sensitive kids, and then he kidnapped Force-sensitive babies for Darth Sidious. All of this eventually paid off in Star Wars Rebels and, of course, The Rise of Skywalker, when he needs Force-sensitive DNA to clone himself.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
Cad Bane also had a run-in with Fennec Shand in the Bad Batch.
Fennec Shand.
Hello, Bane.
You know, this show hasn't been perfect, but it's given us some great Star Wars. New characters, great fights, Boba Fett riding a Rancor. It makes me really excited for the other Star Wars Disney Plus shows like Ahsoka, Obi-Wan, and The Mandalorian. I can't wait to see what they do next. But I do get a little frustrated with Disney Plus because they don't have like all of the Marvel content. See, after No Way Home, I wanted to revisit the other older Spider-Man movies, and none of them are on Disney Plus or on Netflix.
I know, it's ridiculous. How many streaming sites are we supposed to have?
Well, Doug, actually, the Spider-Man movies are on Netflix. In France.
Oui, oui, mon capitaine. Shall we board the plane for Paris?
No, Doug, actually we don't have to fly to France because we have NordVPN, the sponsor of this video. NordVPN has more than 5,400 servers in 59 countries, so I can change my IP address and watch any movie that's streaming anywhere in the world. This also gives me access to Star on Disney Plus, which features mature content like Family Guy, Atlanta, Alien, and more. It's like adding free streaming services on top of the ones that you're already paying for. You can also use NordVPN on multiple devices, like your desktop, phone, or how I use it on my Apple TV. They also have a strict no logs policy. They don't track, collect, or share your private data. So we've got a terrific deal for you. If you go to nordvpn.com/screencrush or click the link in the description, you get a huge discount on a 2-year plan and 1 month for free. And if you sign up on February 10th, you get a special free gift. So go to nordvpn.com/screencrush to get your deal today. Now, in this episode, Cad Bane implies that he and Boba Fett go way back.
I've known you a long time, Boba.
Which is cool, because there was a scrapped Clone Wars episode where he took young Boba Fett under his wing. This episode was almost made, and you can actually watch the animatic of it online.
We're about to be ambushed.
Are you sure?
The thing about Cad Bane is he always works alone, but Boba Fett has always gravitated toward working as a team. Even when he was a kid, he became boss of his own bounty hunter syndicate.
Count Dooku will pay us well if we bring back the Jedi's head.
In Bane's meeting with the Pikes, they brag that they were the ones who killed the Tuskens, framing the Nikto bikers.
He thinks they were killed by Nikto speed bikers. We left evidence behind to encourage such a conclusion.
Which, actually, Megan O'Keefe correctly predicted in one of our Boba Fett talkback videos. Congrats, Megan. Now, during their meeting, Cad Bane mentions the Ithorian mayor having 2 stomachs.
That all depends on how much your 2 stomachs can bear.
Which is cool because they also have 4 throats.
4 throats. Quite powerful.
Then we get back to Peli's shop and see her pit droids and the BD-1 droid from the game Jedi Fallen Order.
Hey, BD-1.
Now, one of Peli's droids is R5-D4, this guy.
It's R2 unit has a bad motivator, look!
In fact, the part of his top that blew off is now missing, but we can tell that Peli cleaned it up. We know this because in The Mandalorian, we see that he was still a burned up mess when he was in the cantina.
These are old Easter eggs. Get on with it.
Yeah, I know they're old, but you never know who's watching these videos for the first time, so I have to run through a few old ones every time we do a new video.
Fine, but they don't go on the thumbnail.
Fine. I don't need to juke my stats, my numbers are clean. So, when I saw the X-Wing flying to Mos Eisley, I thought, briefly, that Luke was going to be reunited with R5-D4, who, by the way, in a non-canon comic book was called Skippy the Jedi Droid, where writer Peter David made him Force-sensitive and said that he only blew his gasket because he could tell that the Force needed Luke to find R2-D2 so he could fulfill his destiny. Now, I did think that when old AA589 showed up that Luke was going to be in the cockpit and we were going to have a reunion with him and Boba after the last time they met, and this happened. And that maybe having a Jedi fight alongside Boba Fett would have resolved his anger at the Jedi for killing his dad, which Tamora Morrison still hasn't gotten over.
I owe him big time. For my dad. Oh yes, no, he's done. He's done.
But R2-D2 was flying the ship instead, showing us that Grogu must have chosen the armor, and that Luke couldn't be bothered to escort a baby through the blackness of space because that baby chose to live with his other dad. You know what though? This does reunite R5 and R2 for just like a second. Kevin Serino on Twitter noted that this is not the first time R2's piloted an X-Wing all by himself. In Star Wars issue 27, R2 swipes an X-Wing to rescue C-3PO from the Empire. I loved Peli's reaction to his name.
Whoa, that's a terrible name. Sorry about that, pal. No way am I calling you that.
Because that's how a lot of fandom reacted, although it did kind of grow on me. Will Watkins on Twitter points out that her nickname for him,
well, hello, Bright Eyes,
is the one that Zira gives Chuck Heston in Planet of the Apes.
Well, Bright Eyes, is our throat feeling better?
And may you ever be as happy as Grogu eating a dugworm. Back in Mos Espa, Cad Bane tells Boba,
If that's not the quack calling the stifling slimy.
Which is a line Boba said in Season 2 of The Mandalorian.
Well, if that isn't the quack calling the stifling slimy.
So maybe Boba did work with Cad Bane in his past and picked up this expression. When Boba realizes that everyone has turned on them, they say,
"It was the smart move."
It was.
Well, if you knew it was a smart move, then you really should have, anticipated that. The droid here is 8D8, and he's voiced by the great Matt Berry.
When I first joined this hospital, I was strictly solo. You were the first real buddy I ever had.
And when Mando swore his allegiance, you can hear a light melody of the Mandalorian theme.
I'm with you until we both fall.
Boba also says,
"You really buy into that bantha fodder?"
An expression that his predecessor, Jabba the Hutt, used. Then the Twi'lek Majordomo, played by the great improviser Dave Pasquesi, steps forward to casually drop his qualifications.
I was educated on Coruscant.
Much like somebody mentioning they went to Harvard. Now, Coruscant is, of course, the former capital of the Republic and the Empire, but here's the thing. He also says,
"What vestiges remain of my accent?"
And you know what? The Twi'leks actually do have a really thick accent.
"If we need to fight, I am as capable as anyone."
That they tend to drop when they leave Ryloth.
"I am not wasting my life. I help people. I lead ships into battle. I am part of something bigger."
When he treats with the Pikes, he says,
"Come in the eyes of the Obadiah High Council."
And Obadiah is the Pike's homeworld that we've seen in Clone Wars. Now, Mando and Boba's original plan was to rush out, emulating the ending of the Great Western, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. And this scene, where Mando says he's willing to die, has a lot more emotional weight because now we know that Grogu is waiting for him over in Mos Eisley. Now, all of this was just a distraction for Boba Fett to finally remember that he has a jetpack. Remember, Episode 1, this fight? Use your jetpack, dude. But, oh man, okay. This is where my nitpicking stops, because from here on out, this fight was just stuff I wanted to see. It's like when your friends come over and you dump out all your toy boxes at the same time and you just go nuts with your action figures. Boba uses his knee rockets because targets are made to hit. You think he gives a shit, your mom is a bitch, and I'll see you in the Sarlacc pit. Then the people of Freetown show up, led by the Weequay bartender, who, gosh, I love this Easter egg, is played by W. Earl Brown, who played the badass Dan Doherty in Deadwood, alongside Cobb Vanth actor Timothy Olyphant.
If he don't die.
I don't swim in that shit.
You ought to pin that on your chest. You're hypocrite enough to wear it.
The hover tank looks like a V-35 Courier with turrets and a passenger section added on, first seen in A New Hope and then in Attack of the Clones. Nomad Actual on Twitter noted that the Pike sniper rifles seem modeled after the Russian Special Forces AS-VAL or VSS rifles. When they regroup with Krrsstan, Boba calls him by a nickname.
Welcome back, Santo.
Now, Krrsstan first appeared alongside Boba Fett in the Darth Vader comics, implying that at the time they were partners. Afterwards, he teamed up with a great character named Dr. Aphra, who gave him a similar nickname, Santi. Then they get pinned down by Scorpinek battle droids in what I believe is their first on-screen appearance, after they were mentioned in the Droid Encyclopedia. Now, they're later models of the droidekas from the prequels.
Hey, why didn't the Empire just use droids like this?
Well, Doug, the Empire didn't have unlimited resources, and they did build 2 Death Stars. In fact, we even see in Rebels that the Death Star was in competition with other projects, like Thrawn's TIE Defenders.
Orson Krennic has been quite persuasive about diverting the funding to his own project, Stardust.
Well said, thank you.
And if you have any Boba Fett plot holes or questions, let me know down in the comments, because we're going to make a video about that.
Roger, roger.
And you know what? Maybe the Empire didn't use droids because they all have one really obvious weakness.
Hit the bus droid, center eye.
Now notice that the shields are best at deflecting energy and high-velocity projectiles, very similar to the force fields in Dune, which can be penetrated by knives and swords, but are useless against ray guns and bullets. This is also similar to how the Gungan shields work in the Phantom Menace. During the battle, a Pike uses the curse word, which we first heard Anakin Skywalker use in Phantom Menace.
We need dough pot, Slimo.
When Grogu shows up, it raises the stakes of the battle because we're worried about a character that we actually care about. And he uses his new Force Jump ability to leap into Din's arms.
Use the Force.
Oh. Okay, little guy.
The rickshaw that Peli is using is just like the one that Anakin and Padme used in Attack of the Clones, and the droid that's pointed is your mom. The Freetown sniper says,
I grew up a womp hop from here, and if we fall back any further, we'll be cornered.
Now, a womp hop is not a dance involving rats with a 1950s theme. It's referring to the hop of a womp rat, and as we know, Tatooine is lousy with these little buggers.
But it's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T-16 back home. They're not much bigger than T-meters.
One thing I loved about this finale is that the city folk and the country folk have to unite for a common cause. See, America, if Tatooine can do it, why not us? I mean, we're all rooting for the Bengals this weekend, right? Hooday! During the battle, Peli loses a tooth. Here, it's a nice detail. And guys, you know what? I'm embarrassed to admit this, but it's true. I actually forgot about the Rancor. I forgot about the Rancor, even though Boba says,
I want to learn to ride this one.
And Danny Trejo's there, and it's clearly an important moment. I forgot about the Rancor. I thought that the Tuskens were going to show up at the end because we were misdirected to think that.
They no longer exist.
Are you sure?
And right here, we hear the classic Wilhelm scream. During the battle, Grogu crushes a droid like Luke taught him to do. Well, I guess that Rancors are nigh invincible beasts who really don't like fire. Then we get to the final showdown with Cad Bane, set up like a classic Western duel. They even added in the sound of cicadas.
Clear out. Take your hoodlum gang with.
This is so fitting because Boba Fett's cape was designed to look like Clint Eastwood's poncho, and Eastwood faced off with Clyde Van Cleef in The Good and the Bad and the Ugly. Boba says,
I'm not a little boy any longer, and you are an old man.
Again, implying that that Clone Wars animated story is canon and that they worked together when Boba was a child. Danny Burgum on Twitter even points out that you can see the head plate where Boba shot him in the unreleased episode. So this entire duel is a rematch from their fight in that animatic, where we learn how Boba's helmet got its dent. Bane says,
Now's about the time you jet off to your Bacta tank.
Which, yeah, is basically every fan's reaction to the first 4 episodes of this show. This showdown was great because Bane isn't just a physical challenge to Boba Fett, he's challenging Boba emotionally, symbolically. Boba Fett's time in the Sarlacc and with the Tuskens showed him that he doesn't want to end up like his father. His dad was another gunslinger who died with his boots on.
But you've got your father's blood pumping through your veins.
Boba's vision of the tree on Kamino symbolized his family tree. He comes from a line of warriors, both the Mandalorians and the clones, and he's an exact copy of his father, Jango Fett. So, to break this warrior cycle, to not be like his father, he needs to learn to rely on others. Cad Bane is the antithesis of this, a man who only exists for hire with no code or principles. So, is Boba going to end up like all the other bounty hunters, or forge a new way?
What is it? A new way?
Bane wins the duel because, of course, he's Cad Bane. But Boba outsmarts him by using a weapon that Bane doesn't know how to counter, his gaffy stick. So, Boba learning to rely on others, becoming part of a tribe, saves his life. Now, as for if Cad Bane is dead, I don't know. Is this a pacemaker on his chest, a distress call? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Then we get to the Rancor Rampage in Mos Espa, where he throws a speeder that's very similar to Luke's X-34. He climbs up to the top of this tower, a direct nod to this iconic scene from King Kong. Star Wars is always at its best when it mixes genres, and this also reminded me of a terrific Clone Wars episode where a kaiju is loose in Coruscant. Should really check that one out. And then, Din still has the ball that he recovered from the wreckage of the Razor Crest, and he gives it to Grogu. I love that Grogu basically did a semester at Jedi U, he got homesick, and now he's bringing his new abilities into battle with Din. He uses the Force to calm down the Rancor, like we've seen Ezra Bridger do to animals on Rebels. And afterwards, he falls straight asleep, just like he did after using the Force all through Season 1, because it wears him out. And the score here is the same as when he held the Mudhorn in place in Mandalorian Chapter 2. Israel Lamont on Twitter also noted that this is how Darth Bane tamed a bull Rancor in the Knights of the Old Republic. Peli says,
I'm guessing there's not going to be a barbecue.
Which might be a nod to the restaurant Ronto's Roasters from Galaxy's Edge, where you can buy a drink called the Bloody Rancor. Then, at the Pike's final meeting in Mos Eisley, Fennec Shand shows off while she's high in the running for deadliest in the galaxy now that Cad Bane is dead. Isaac Moreno on Twitter points out that this whole sequence is reminiscent of the first action scene in Leon the Professional, even including a window with holes letting the light through. The episode ends with them enjoying fruit and standing next to the LEP rat catcher droid that deactivated itself. This is what Boba Fett does. He turns enemies into allies. At the spaceport at the end of the episode, we see a newer model Gonk droid, and is it me, or is this the first time the theme has actually said the words Grogu ends the episode in a very unsafe spot in Din's N1 Naboo starfighter, an exposed glass canopy that's going to make me nervous every time I see him in it. Seriously, like a layer this thick, keeping him out of the vacuum of space. This ship is cool, but it's not practical at all for a bounty hunter, which makes me think next season he won't be bounty hunting. Then in the post-credits scene, we have the return of bassist Steven Thundercat Bruner modifying Cobb Vanth as he heals in a Bacta tank. Very cool. If you remember, he was the one who modified the mods a few episodes back. But what did you think of the episode? What do you want to see happen next in this universe? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash this bell for alerts. For Screen Crush, I'm Ryan Airy.